from Peacekeeper to just I use a stone cold killer is what I use in my brain. It's just a staunch, stare look, and I just like can't phase me. I'm tough. I'm a man. You know what? I'm going to be hard. I'm going to be tough, and it just really shifted from that Peacekeeper into this hardened man that was not even close to what I would call being my authentic self at all.
This is Eagle Freedom Presents.
Men, are you stuck with the enigma of having to always be tough and show no emotion? If so, this interview is for you. Jared Luke's story is about breaking down the toxic generational philosophies of masculinity that keep so many men trapped in silence, which began when he had to play peacemaker at the expense of his own needs, failed marriages, and the profound trauma of betrayal. Today, he is the owner of a successful gym in Idaho and is set to launch his own podcast for men. And stick around, because at the end of the interview, Jared is going to talk about a new group specifically for men. Jared, it's an absolute honor to have you on the podcast. Welcome to Eagle Freedom Presents.
Oh, Dustin, it's an honor. This is fantastic, and what a privilege it is to get to know you as well. So thank you.
Tell us about being a peacemaker as a child.
It's interesting. They say kind of the middle child has always been like kind of the peacemaker, but grew up in the 80s, 80s, 90s child. And so dad worked lots and lots and lots. Mom was forced into work. And so came with that a lot of stress, a lot of chaos, a lot of financial struggles. We had to, borrow from the church. We had to take loans, had to take seconds on homes. So a lot of financial stresses, but then came a lot of just a lot of chaos. I'm one of four boys as well, and so it was I would say kind of a tougher group, tougher household. But at the same time, I was raised with the traditional of boys are tough, boys don't cry, put some dirt on it, just stop whining, grow up. And so anytime those awkward moments came along, for some reason, something sparked in myself that, that I needed to crack a joke or I needed to, maybe make the mood a little lighter. And so we have a lot of little one-liners in the family, that we still use today to help kind of crack those jokes. But for some reason, I just felt this need to be this peacemaker, and it just carried with me for a very long time.
So basically, would you just like get up in the morning and kind of navigate through how the feeling was in the house and the same thing in the evening, just kind of before things got chaotic? Did you just kind of get a sense that where you needed to be?
Eventually, from time to time, I think it was more situational. It wasn't like it wasn't an always type of a situation. It was just, mostly evening times, obviously when everybody's tired, everybody's coming home from work and school. But even, sometimes on the weekends. So yeah, it was just a lot of just not always on high alert. I wouldn't necessarily say, but when things felt tough, and throughout the years, it always felt like the family would come to me in order to, try to say, hey, help me out here. I felt like they, not necessarily with those words, but it felt like they came to me for, kind of that pressure of just kind of lightening the mood.
So as you're navigating all of this, how did this impact you, like going to school? How did it impact your school, your social life? Tell us if there was an impact in that.
Oh, absolutely. Especially the social part of it. I always wanted to be accepted, so being that peacekeeper, I wanted to blend in. So I found myself being a lot, I like to say like a chameleon. I would blend into multiple groups, and not necessarily just like, oh, this is my group. It's like I would be able to blend and just kind of be very average and just kind of not really overpowering or not being hidden in the shadows. It kept me in a position where I was just kind of just staying neutral, just maintaining this kind of neutral status in school. I never really tried to excel in school as far as my education, as far as grades. I just never really cared for it, just enough to kind of like see average in order to just kind of maintain. So I saw that this peacekeeping kept me on this average level of just not trying to push harder, but not necessarily funking.
Did that affect you, this average level that you didn't strive to do anything great. Of course, you didn't try to, do anything that was really, really bad, but you didn't try to excel. at any point. Did that carry on into your adult life? Did you carry that with you?
Absolutely. It wasn't until I was probably in my 20s when I was introduced to personal development, or just introduced to different people that are living a higher level of life, is when I started going, oh, I should probably step it up a little bit more. I mean, every time I had like a job or a certain responsibility, whether it be at a job or religion, I tried to excel in a place where it didn't make me overshine, but I wanted to do my best to keep the peace. So I didn't want to ever get in trouble, right? So I think there was a difference between excelling and just trying to do enough to stay out of trouble as well in my careers on a religious level, but then introducing myself into being an early father, at the age of 23, I was like, all right, I need to step it up a little bit more there as well. And so my brain started transferring a little bit more into growth, but I was starting at such, in my opinion, such an average level that growth just, it was a growing process from my early 20s that needed to happen.
So you were, excuse me, you were a father at a young age,
Mhm.
and so you have your kids. So how much of that past, the childhood, carried over to raising your children? Because you mentioned, you started to see shifts. You started to notice there were some things that you needed to change. But did some of that carry over to raising your kids early in life?
I mean, I would say some did. I mean, luckily being, introduced into the realm of the personal development, I really tried to start reflecting because that's what they teach you in that world of growth. They try to teach you reflect. And so I was like, all right, if I'm playing at this age level, where did I learn this stuff? Where did I learn the patterns from? And obviously the patterns I was learning from were from my parents. And so as I tried to do different, wanting to do different. There was a self-sabotage a lot of times, like I'm not good enough to be a good parent. But at the same time, it's like, well, what habits can I incorporate differently than what my parents did? Instead of getting the belt, do I just kind of, I give them a little swat instead of, grounding them forever? Do I give them a talk to? But then there's always the self-sabotaging thoughts that come in, like I'm not a good parent. I don't deserve to be a dad. And then I would find myself going back to that level of average and had to constantly kind of dig myself out of that in order to be a little bit different than what I
And
was raised.
I think you touched on something that was interesting when you're talking about the self-sabotage. Times, where, and as men, we talked about it at the beginning. I mentioned this, but there's this facade that we have to be tough. You can't let emotion show. You can't do, and it sounds like that's kind of upbringing that you also had.
Right.
So, were you instilling that same behavior in your kids growing up? That hey, you got to be tough, right?
I
Because that's
did.
how you were raised. Did you start doing that with your children?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there was times they would fall down. I'm like, all right, get off, walk it off, walk it off. There would be, yeah, it's like, hey, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I would talk down to their emotions versus help them walk them through their emotions the same way I was raised. Correct.
So this was your first marriage because as we
Correct.
mentioned at the beginning that you've been married and divorced twice. So if you want to touch on that because I think that was a big point, obviously in your life you're being married, you've got kids, but it didn't last. Do you want to touch on that and some of the obstacles that you encountered during that time in your life?
Oh, sure. So during the first marriage, I mean, we were married for 15 years. I mean, we it was our first time, right? It was our first time being married, or the first time being parents, and trying to figure things out. We just didn't get the help that we needed. We didn't seek the help that we needed in order to create a healthy relationship. So what was a 15-year marriage ended with more of a 15-year roommate situation. And so a lot of times I just felt like I was being used for a paycheck. I would come home and celebrate, some of my accomplishments, and basically would be turned around and say, "Oh, well, what kind of finances does that bring for us?" And I'm like, I want to rejoice in my emotion here, and celebrate, but yet I just looked as a paycheck. I spent a lot of my time. I mean, I wanted to be with my boys. My boys are my life. They're my power. They're my source of energy. And there's a lot of times that I wanted to go do stuff. And she was like, "Oh, just take the boys." There was a lot of separation, or there was a lot of divide that started taking place over those 15 years that we just weren't working together as a team. I mean, we'd go on family vacations, but there was times that she would just kind of hang out in the hotel room while I'm exploring with the boys. There's times that we would go on these adventures, but at the same time, it didn't feel like it was fully into it. And so it just felt like I was pulling a lot of the weight on my own, but I wanted to, again, try to keep the peace because my parents argued a lot. So I didn't want to get into that scene again. So I wanted to make sure that I try to protect the boys as much as possible. But at the same time, I mean, not knowing what I didn't knowing and how to control my emotions, I saw I saw the duplication, the patterns of my father. And, the arguments did happen and the boys were victims of all that stuff. And so I just saw a lot of the same things bringing, coming from my past into the relationship, but just wasn't able to find the right tools. And so eventually that turned into sleeping in different rooms, sleeping in different beds, and just falling apart and just feeling very unhappy and unsatisfied.
So, kind of what I'm getting as you're describing this, I'm kind of going back to when you were a kid and you were playing peacemaker with your parents. Were you trying to play peacemaker too in the marriage, like trying to keep it together, trying to without going again, not go above, but just trying to keep it average, just to keep things going?
Yeah. No, that pattern stayed with that one as well. I mean, it's like we go to, I mean, the counseling that we did do, it's like, oh, yeah, that's for her, or just like, all right, well, I'll try a little bit more. And, because I always felt like if I did more and she did less, it just wasn't fair. So just trying to keep that peace versus keeping the arguing for sure.
Now, I want to kind of bring religion into this because you had a religious background growing up, and so did religion play a part in your marriage, and how did it play a part in it?
It definitely started on it. It was the foundation. It was what brought us together. I mean, we followed the religious practices, initially, and as we followed those practices, everybody says, okay, if you do these things, if you read your scriptures, say your prayers, go to church, you're going to be happy. So we were trying to follow those things, and that happiness wasn't coming. But at the same time, it seems like over the years, all of a sudden, she was like, I'm too tired. You just take the boys. So the religious activity on her part started to fall off. And then I felt like I needed to step it up even more to try to keep, the spiritual piece in the relationship, the spiritual piece in the house. And so there was some extra steps that I was trying to take in order to get to that point. But at the same time, it was just it was just draining me because it wasn't authentic. It was being forced because I was really just trying to balance to kind of keep some peace here and trying to keep some kind of medium level spirituality going.
So at some point, obviously, the marriage comes to an end, and you're stuck in a new point in your life. Well, basically, it's another starting point for you in your life. Touch on that and how that marriage ending, how that kind of carried on to later in life. You from that point on. Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, after that, I mean, the divorce, it wasn't nice. It was about a 2.5 year divorce. It was really just fighting over custody over the kids. It was a very painful time. I was like, I just want to see my kids, but at the same time, I want to be fair to my kids. And so here, I was putting these different proposals together to try to say, hey, they're in school in the town in which they were being, we lived in, that they were already established in, but yet I moved to a neighboring town and I didn't want to rip them out. Not to mention my work schedule was chaos because I found myself just working like a dog again. And so I tried to say, okay, stay with your mom as much as possible. I'll take care of the weekends, which just was interpreted as like, oh, I don't want to spend time with my kids. I don't want to put my kids first. And it just became very emotionally, uh, just enraging. All right. I just became this new guy of just fighting for, against this woman that I cared for 15 years, all of a sudden to hating this woman. And it just really disrupted a bond and a friendship that we once had. And so I swore myself I would never get married ever again because it was so chaos. I never wanted to put myself through that experience. I never wanted to put my children through that experience ever again. And so it was really important for um, me to just stick it to her versus let's make some peace. So it transferred from a peacekeeper to a like let's go out and let's hurt this person. It was quite interesting.
Wow, that's quite the pivot to take that did that change in attitude of being a peacemaker and, "Oh, let's just make the life miserable."
Right.
But that
Yeah,
had
not
to that
physically, by the way, not physically hurting,
right,
miserable.
yeah, right,
Right.
right, yeah, but for somebody who's a peacekeeper to go to that extreme, internally, what did that do to you internally to have to making that shift? Because that's not what you normally did.
Mhm.
You either you got to a boiling point and said, "Okay, enough is enough. If I'm gonna hurt, then she's gonna hurt." But what was that feeling like inside you at the time?
It was a shift that I've never experienced before because all of a sudden I've never I mean, I've had I didn't really understand walls like I do today, but I mean, I can see now that the walls that I was building to create this safe space to never be hurt or open up my heart completely ever again was taking place. I mean, I was really devastated by these actions and this relationship that I just closed up. I mean, my heart was closed. I went into another relationship with a lady after my first wife, and that was chaos because I was so closed. We could never connect. We fought with many arguments, and that we were on a relationship for off and on for 4 or 5 years, and it just always ended with an argument because I was so cold. So I went from peacekeeper to just I use a stone cold killer is what I use in my brain. You know, it's just a staunchly a stare look, and I just like can't phase me. I'm tough. I'm a man. You know what? I'm gonna be hard. I'm gonna be tough, and it just really shifted from that peacekeeper into this hardened man that was not even close to what I recall being my authentic self at all.
Yeah, I think you touched on something that a lot of people do, men and women, and that is the fact after a relationship like that, that ends like that, and all that went on, we tend to put those walls up. Because we don't want anybody to get inside, right? And because we don't want to, you can get this close, but you can't get this close,
Right.
right? You can't get this close ever again.
Hold
So,
hands
but
from a
it's
distance.
right, right. And so at some point, though, those walls gotta start coming down so you can live life, so you can enjoy life, because when you're doing that, for the men and women out there, when you're doing that, you're disallowing a service to you. You're not allowing yourself to truly enjoy what God has intended for you. So at some point, those walls for you had to start coming down. When did that happen?
So after that little 4 or 5 year span, there was a little bit of a gap, and then I met another girl that we started dating, and I told her up front, I'm like, I'm never getting married again. If you want this relationship, it's going to be just boyfriend girlfriend, but at the same time, if we want to advance in this thing, we will, but it won't be a piece of paper. We can be married, in our minds and our hearts, but that's about it. And she actually agreed to it. So we actually spent 2 years living together, and in that time frame, I felt a shift again. I felt my heart starting to soften. She brought into the relationship, 3 little kids. Two of them would live with their dad primarily, like 90% of the time, in a different state, but her youngest, was living with us. She had full custody, and so the little daughter was 3 at the time, and, had my girlfriend and this 3-year-old, staying with me, and here I am having to play dad again. And I wanted to try to make some changes in the way I fathered my children to be a little more compassionate, a little more understanding. Not to mention, I raised 2 boys. Now I got a little girl that's 3 years old. Um, and so during that 2 year course, I felt my heart soften because this woman just loved and adored me, and we did everything together. We did business together, we did life together. We just had such a great, fun bond that my heart melted, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's a shift. I actually want to marry this woman." And so by that, 2-year mark, I proposed, and we were both excited to get married. She um, and I were planning it. We had a 1-year engagement, and things in that 1 year started to get a little rocky. But we'll come to that, I'm sure. But what I love is I started those 2 years of transformation when my heart was melting. It's because of the growth that I was trying to do up here as well, right? I mean, I've been trying to grow ever since I was introduced to this personal development. And so I'm starting in my 20s at this baseline, and it's been just a very, very slow progression, which is great. But that heart melt because of the way I was teaching and rewiring my brain allowed me to then lower these walls down to try to get back or get to more of a authentic self, an authentic Jared that brought peace, but not necessarily the peacemaker brought peace back into my life.
I want to kind of take you back real quick because as you were first describing this, when you're describing the walls first coming down, you kind of get emotional when you were talking about that, and when this kind of goes back to being okay for a man to get emotional, and so why were you getting so emotional? What was going through your mind as you were telling us this? Because you were full of emotion.
Um, I mean, I definitely am full of emotion a lot more now than ever. And because I mean, men and women, we all have emotions. I mean, we say women are more emotional. It's not that women are more emotional. Women are better at expressing their emotions than men are. We just suppress our emotions. And so, as through my journey, and just even recalling how those emotions shifted back then, how my heart just opened and I just loved so deeply. I was like, oh my gosh, I found my soulmate. I really felt I found my soulmate in the second woman, and with the second wife. And so I just gave, I gave everything, I provided for her, provided for her kids. I mean, she pulled her weight, more than my first wife. I mean, she complimented, she supported. I mean, there was a lot that we did together and we were best friends. We're just best friends. The little girl was calling me daddy, even though she was an adopt, didn't adopt her. That's all she knew. And so that's why I'm so emotional is because it was such a deep friendship partnership and companionship that we had in that relationship with that little girl at the same time, um, is tough because I mean, that's now was ripped out of my life. And it wasn't just something that we grew apart over time like the first wife. It was something that did it. And I'll go into it just briefly here, just because I don't know if you want to talk about it right now or not. But during that 1 year courtship, or not courtship of engagement, there was just things that weren't resting right in my soul and my gut and my intuition. And so I was challenging it, just inquiring, didn't want to be pushy, didn't want to be overpowering, didn't want to be, this manly man of overpowerment and go back to that rage man that I once was. I just wanted to ask questions, and I was seeking some clarity, so seeking some validation that these thoughts and these suspicions weren't true, and I wasn't getting them. But I was like, you know what? I'm in my head. I gotta, I'm good. It's on my head. Let's not be controlling. Let's just move on. Let's progress to the wedding. The wedding came. It was a beautiful wedding. Had a wonderful day, beautiful weather outside. I had it in my friend's backyard. Just everything went perfect. Went on a wonderful honeymoon. And during the first 6 months, that uneasy feeling didn't go away
Mm.
to the point where I was very bold with it. I'm like, I'm really feeling insecure. I really feeling like there's something going on that's really in my gut that I feel really uneasy. Can you help me understand where those thoughts are coming from? And it would just be blown off, just blown off. Oh, it's in your head. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I'm not doing anything. And just change the subject. Or if we started getting deep, she would shut down. And she would say, I need space. I'm like, all right, I need to honor that space. But then when we would come back, she's like, I'm good now. Nothing was ever resolved and figured out. That conflict resolution was never done. Um, but after 6 months, it came to a point where she's like, you know what, I can't fake this anymore. I'm like, fake what? She's like, well, I need to go pick up my two oldest kids and bring them here for spring break. Again, those two older kids lived out of state. Bring them here to Idaho for spring break. And she's like, I don't want to fake in front of the kids. So can you go stay with somebody else? I'm
Wow.
like, you want me to stay out of the house during spring break when we had spring break plans? I was like, I started triggering that old Jared. I'm like, well, if you want to do that, you go somewhere else. So she's like, well, that's not going to happen. And she left, to go pick up her kids and asked me to watch the little one. But she left 3 days earlier to go to go pick up these, to have some time alone in a different state. And I
Mm,
was like, well, you've never done it before. That's kind of odd. But as she left, she turned off her GPS.
mm.
And I'm all, that's suspicious. And I went to log on the computer. Her password was changed on the computer. I'm like, okay, this is very suspicious. Here she's saying she needed time to think and reflect on how uneasy she was feeling, but yet all of her posts had big smiles on it. She's outside just doing all these things, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right.
Mhm.
So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to put the kids in the middle of this. I'm going to step out. I'll step away. She can tell him whatever she wants to tell him. I'd left the house so that she could have the spring break with these three kids of hers. And I was like, well, let's have counseling. Let's get counseling. If you're uneasy, let's get counseling. Um, we had one counseling session. It was via Zoom because she was here. I was at a different location with our first counselor, and the counselor's like, "What's going on?" And I simply said, here's my thoughts. Here's what's going on through my head. I feel like there's stuff that's going behind my back, both personally and professionally, and I want to fix this." And the therapist looked at my wife at the time and said, "What do you want to do?" She's like, "I want a divorce." That was the
Wow.
first time I heard she wanted a divorce. She says, "I don't want to fake it anymore." Went to, "I want a divorce." So of course I was devastated, started crying. I didn't understand. Um, and it all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, then I stayed out of the house for that week. I stayed out another additional week and just was talking I hired a counselor myself, and I went and just started saying, what do I need to do? I mean, if she wants this divorce, I guess I got to accept it. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to accept this divorce. I wrote her a text message saying, hey, this is what you want. I will honor it. I'm moving back into the house. I'll sleep in one of the extra bedrooms in the kids' room and the boys' room, so
Mhm.
we could figure out how to divorce this naturally and civilly. I get home, start getting established, and turns out she's already packing. So she's planning on the divorce. She's planning on moving out of state to the same state that she went to go pick up her kids, which I thought was interesting. That she then came home and found me here mowing the lawn and served me with divorce papers that very same day.
Wow.
And then basically said I had to move out. I'm like, well, why do I need to move out? And so she's like, "Well, it's right here. If you establish residency somewhere else, you can't move back in the house." I'm like, "I've been living out of my suitcase at my parents' house and a buddy's house and another buddy's house. I haven't established residency anywhere." So, gosh, she's like, "I'm going to call the cops." She called the cops.
Well,
Well, no, she didn't. She threatened to call the cops. I called the cops. I'm like, "What's going on right here?" They're like, "Hey, we'll send a police over there before it escalates. We'll send a police over." They sent four cops over here, four different cops' cars, four different cops. So they thought domestic violence might be spurring here. And I'm like,
mhm.
I don't know what's going on. This is what's happening. This is the situation. She comes over and says, hey, I want him out of the house. They're like, there's no legal bounds for that. So she's like, well, can I go in and grab some stuff? She spent the night at the neighbor's house. One of the cops called me later on that night and just said, give you a heads up. She just filed a restraining order against you.
Wow.
So here I just want to be back in my house so we can divorce properly and civilly. And now I got a restraining order placed upon me. So now I have to be kicked out of my house, move back into somebody else's house, and go fight this restraining order that was meaningless, but I couldn't have contact with her in order for her to pack more things.
Right.
And after that, we went to court. We fought for that restraining order, and I had to hire an attorney because I was emotional wrecked. I was like, "There's no way I can, fight for myself or
Mhm.
even speak up for myself," because I started finding myself spiraling into this confused depression and anxiety. Here I opened up my heart and gave my life to this woman and this child, and all of a sudden it's just blowing up in my face, and I have no clue why. So the restraining order came back, after that. Well, we went to the court for that, and we did a agree to stay away order versus having a restraining order on my record. We did the agree to stay away order, and I just stepped aside. We could do via email, and we started working on a spreadsheet of what items were whose and how to
Mhm.
divide everything, and thought we had that all figured out. And she eventually sent me an email saying we're out of the house. I came back to the house and it was empty.
So you get the so you end up getting the divorce, all that is done, but
Mhm.
yet there's and I know there's more to this story, and so I think this is kind of goes to your intuition, your gut feeling that you had. So let's jump into that and what transpired that made you go, "Oh, I was right about this."
Well, what I was right. I mean, I got some validation. I mean, a couple months after the divorce was final, I received a message, some random message on Instagram in my request folder, and it says she's moved on. And it's from some guy I've never met, didn't even wasn't even friends with, have no clue. And I'm like, well, that's curious. So let me just play along. Normally I don't. Usually I delete those things, but I played along. It just says, who's moved on? This gentleman sends me this picture, but it's a cryptid picture that you actually have to click on because as soon as you click on it, it'll disappear. Right. And so I was like, well, I don't know what this is. I'm like, so I sent a message. I'm like, hey, I don't know who you are. I'm not going to send on a cryptid message that I don't know what this might be. And he's like, can you at least tell me this person's name? Just trying playing ignorant, right? Just not knowing what he's really going after. He's like, I don't care what you do with it, but her name's right. I'm like, all right, I need to click on this now. So I clicked on it. And sure enough, it was a picture of her in lingerie on a bed with a caption saying, touch me if you can.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, where did you get this picture? And he's like, on the dark web. I'm like, is there a lot of them? He's like, there's hundreds of them and she's been doing it for months. So
Wow.
it's somebody that has been following her in this progression of pictures of posting, whether it's all lingerie or not, but posting inappropriate pictures as a married woman to me. So my brain goes, all right, OnlyFans, something, whatever it might be. It just kind of then set that validation. I'm like, oh my gosh, there was something going on. There was
Mm.
something going on. And because I was confronting it instead of dealing with it, she ran.
So you get to this point now, your second divorce, it's done now. You found all this stuff going on, and I'm sure emotionally, mentally, and even physically, I'm sure it's taken a toll on you
Mm.
as well. All of this. So how do you take all of that and move on from that?
No, I appreciate that. I mean, therapy, 100% therapy. I mean, I am a firm believer that everybody should be doing some form of therapy, meeting with somebody to talk through everything they got going in life. Um, because yeah, I mean, I lost 20 pounds. I mean, I'm in the fitness world, so to be able to lose 20 pounds, is significant for this body here. But I do personal training, so everybody recognized something was going on. I mean, I was losing sleep, not eating, so yeah, there was a lot of physical um, suffering that took place, but also the emotional and just this dark deep. I mean, to the point where I was like, would anybody even miss me if I disappeared? Not that I was going to take my life, but to the point it was like, I don't matter anymore. This woman took everything from me, is what I was thinking. And I just allowed myself to go through this very deep depression. So because of therapy, I started just talking through it and just trying to really identify my emotions. And what I found when, through this last 2.5 years is how many times I've tried to just do things by myself, in my life. I've tried to do it by myself. And I mean, I've done my prayers, I've done the scriptures, I tried to do all that stuff in the religious thing back in the day, but I was doing it out of a habit, not as a mindset. And so through that course of working with that counselor, with that therapist, I figured out that not only do my habits I have to get my old habits back into place, I had to start doing a transformation. And there's a scripture in Romans, I believe, and it says, be renewed by the transformation of your mind. Right. And so I was like, I reflected on that quite a bit. And so the transformation of my mind, I allowed myself to get so programmed a certain way that I'm like, I got to rewire this. How do I rewire this? And so between therapy and another daily practice I did, you can see there's a mirror right behind me on my wall. I did a lot of mirror work. And with mirror work for me, what that meant is I spent a lot of time looking at myself in the eyeballs. And that's awkward. It's very awkward when you first start.
Mhm.
to the point where it's like you do glance away, like, "Oh my gosh, he's staring at me. What, like, what, you want to fight me?" It's really kind of weird, all the mixed emotions that go through it. But I did a lot of mirror work and just started doing the self talk. I turned that into affirmations. I started writing daily affirmations on my mirror to hold myself accountable to that. I started posting myself, writing these affirmations and saying these affirmations every single day. And so between the mirror work, therapy, and the affirmations, I started rewiring my brain. I
Mhm.
started this shift that took me from this dark into more light and more light and more light. And so ever since, the transformation has happened because I've been working on the inside approach here, really trying to renew my mindset because I've worked with clients for many, many years in their physical, but they're not getting the success they want because of the walls, right? The mental walls, the mental self-talk, the self-sabotaging responses block them from their progress. And I need to start listening to my own advice and get over the mental block so I can evolve spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically.
A while back, I did a little short episode about a mirror, and basically, how many times we look at the mirror, but we don't look at who's in the mirror, right? I think all of us have done that, men and women. We don't want to. We look in the mirror, and then we kind of glance away. But do we ever look at the eyes? Do we ever look at that person looking back in you? What is that person telling you? And you realized that that was a very important thing for you to do, was to encounter that person in the mirror, right? You needed to encounter your other self right there and start having this conversation so you could get back on the healing track.
Yeah, I was talking to a gentleman this morning and talking about the eye contact in front of a mirror this morning. And it's interesting. It's like when you love someone and they're talking to you, it's easy to stare in their eyes. When you love them and really respect what they're saying and doing and living, it's easy to stare at their eyes. I can do it with my kids. I can do it with my loved ones, right? It's easy to stare at their eyes. When you have love and respect for somebody, you can stare at their eyes. Usually in psychology, as your eyes are dancing all over the place, it's you're bored of the person, right? And you don't believe in anything they're saying. But when you love and respect that person, you'll make that eye contact. So when you're looking in the mirror and dancing all over the place and can't make that eye contact, there's some work that needs to be done, some internal work here first, which will translate into that heart.
And so, yeah, and something else along those same lines is we're so quick. If we have a best friend or a buddy or a woman, if you have a woman or something, and they're feeling so down, they're feeling beat up, and what do we tell them? Don't beat yourself up, right? You're a good person. You've done well in life. Yeah, you've had obstacles, but you've overcome them. We're great at lifting those people up. But when we're looking in the mirror at the person, we are the first ones to sabotage that person. We're the first person to say, "You're not worthy. You
100%.
screwed up. You messed up." And it's just so ironic that we're so quick to condemn ourselves, but so quickly to uplift other people.
100%.
So where did this passion for personal development, physical training, all that come into play
No,
in
I
your
love
life?
it. So, yeah, I'll try to be brief on this one. So, I mean, I never thought weightlifting was for me. My freshman year of high school, I could barely bench press the bar. Everybody on the soccer team made fun of me. So I'm like, all right, weights are out. I'll never step foot into a gym, never, ever again. Um, I got a job working in a manufacturer of dietary supplements. And so that kind of forced me into a health and wellness thing because I've done a lot of manual labor and stuff like that. This is my first desk job. And so I worked at this manufacturer of dietary supplements. So everybody there that I was working around were kind of physically fit and into health and wellness because that's why they were in that realm, is because they were attracted to that. I just needed a job and I got a homie hookup because I needed a job. So they started inviting me out saying, "Hey dude, come to the gym, come to the gym, come work out with us, come work out with us." I'm like, "Nah, guys, not for me, not for me. Here's my experience." They're like, "Dude, we're not gonna make fun of you. We're good, we're good." And I mean, I've been a dad for a while now. This was probably 20 years ago. And I went into the gym with the first time and I was like, "Here we go." Got that barbell off. And I'm like, "Oh, sweet. I got some dad muscles finally." Something happened, right? So like it sparked a little bit of curiosity, but a little bit of, like, all right, maybe there's something to this. That they wrote me out a workout plan. They worked me out a meal plan because I mean, I was beanpole, like age 16. I don't know if this means anybody else, but I was 96 pounds at age 16. So I was a skinny, skinny kid all my life. always getting pushed around, kind of bullied for my skinniness. And so that's what also kind of kept me kind of just bouncing from group to group to group, just trying to stay under the radar. Wore baggy clothes to hide it. So as I started, this regimen, they said just devour food, right? So I just started devouring food, and all of a sudden my gut started sticking out a little bit. My butt started
Mm.
sticking out a little bit more. I'm like, hey guys, I'm gaining weight, but it's not in the right areas. So they helped me understand how to balance macros, the proteins, the carbs, and your fats. And so as I started just learning these things on my own and just kind of testing it, people started asking me, "What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm noticing a change. Wow, your arms are getting bigger. Hey, Jared, your shoulders are getting bigger. What are you doing?" And so I found myself sharing what I was doing with people to the point where like, "Hey, can you train me?" I'm like, "All right." So I started doing some training. Then all of a sudden I was like, you know what, let's become a trainer. So I found a studio that was for sale. I was able to buy this personal training studio, but I was working my full-time job at the vitamin place. So I hired two trainers. Or hired one trainer, didn't work out very good, hired another trainer. That didn't work out very good. So employing people, I understand sucks sometimes. So I decided I'm like, I'm gonna figure this out. And so I worked trained in the morning, went to my day job, and then trained in the evening time to build this business. And so that's how I kind of stumbled into it. But what it's done for me is it's shifted some disciplines, right? It's like you have to be disciplined in exercise, in your wellness, in your health, in order to achieve new results. You can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. You got to be able to change what you're doing. And so through that change, I was able to start noticing that my thinking started clearing up. Obviously my respiratory, right? My heart, my cardio was better, but my brain, my cognitive part shifted. And so just through that, through the years of exercise, I was able to, I was looking for a bigger studio and wanted to advance, the business. And I found a larger location, and it was a little voice of God saying, stop, check out this building. And believe it or not, that's a great story, but I'll shrink it here. I went up to the glass windows and put my head, eyes, my face up to the glass, and the gym as I have it today unfolded in a vision. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to open a gym right now. So had the gym for the last 9 years and just been helping people with their fitness and their wellness. But I've been incorporating a lot of these life journey lessons about philosophy and mindset along the way, and watching real transformation happen in other people's lives become a great passion of mine now.
Let's go ahead and talk about that
Okay.
moment when you had this, I guess we call it a God moment, said, "Stop and take a look at this."
Bet.
Because, let's talk about it. Tell us how that came about.
So yeah, the personal training studio was I didn't make a lot of money with that personal training studio. I owned it for 5 years. It's because we were limited on our space, but I was also limited on my time. I had contract trainers come in, and that sort of offset some of the costs. So I started having a little more money at the end of the month. But I was like, all right, I like what I'm doing here. Well, let's go find a bigger place so I can have more trainers come in. So that was my mindset, right? And so I was looking for a bigger location, but my boys and I went up to the mountains. We did snowboarding. We stayed till close, and on the way back, they were passed down the back of the truck, and we were driving down this dark road. And as we came almost to a light, all of a sudden, I heard the voice say, "Stop." I mean, it was only going like 25 miles an hour, so I wasn't worried about slamming on the brakes. I was able to come to a stop, but I was like, "Okay, I've never heard the voice say stop." So I'm stopped. Now what? And all of a sudden, this glow just came out of the corner of my left eye, and I look over, and this building is glowing. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was kind of a dark road, so I
Mhm.
didn't notice this building until I stopped and it started glowing. As I looked over, I saw a for lease sign on there. I'm like, huh, that's a lot bigger than what I was thinking that I needed.
Right.
But let's go take a peek. I actually had to back up to get into the driveway. As I pulled up to these double doors, I shined my high beams in. My sons are in the back seat, right? This is actually happened after the first divorce, and just trying to dig out of that rut still. I did. I just walked up to it, and I just put my hands, and I just saw this vision of this gym, and I'm like, I've always wanted to own a gym. I just did the personal training studio to kind of get my feet in the door in the fitness world. I want to own a gym. I wonder if this is going to work. I wonder if this is it. I'm like, I'm just gonna. I heard the voice. I'm gonna call this guy. This is a good story. So I called the number on the for lease sign, expecting to go to some office. This is like 10 o'clock at night. Expecting to go to an office. It's Friday night, late at night, And I make a phone call, ready to leave a voicemail. Ring, ring. Hello. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just woke somebody up. I'm like, hi, my name's Jared. Who is this? I'm so sorry, sir. I'm at the building. What do you? Hold on. I'm just like, oh my gosh, horrible first start or first impression here. So I wait felt like 15 minutes, which was probably like 15 seconds, but I was just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And he gets on. He's like, hello, who's this? I'm like, hi, my name's Jared. I'm at your building. Oh, hey, yeah, how can I help you? I'm like, "Yeah, I'm interested in your building." He's like, "I'm so sorry. I just couldn't hear you. I was at a poker game that was really loud. Mucus was going, everybody's conversation. I just couldn't hear you. But yeah, how can I help you?" I was like, "I'm interested." He's like, "Great. Let's meet tomorrow." And I'll tell you, Justin, it went like dominoes. That one domino I just had to flick over, which was a scary domino for to make the phone call, to have that being that first, interaction with this landlord be going so crappy at first. I was about to like pull back during that 15 seconds of waiting for him and just hang up,
Mm.
but I still flicked that one domino and the lease was exactly the price I needed. The carpet I needed was the exact square footage. The equipment I wanted just came on sale as a set. All the
Mm.
treadmills, the mats, everything I needed. I mean, I was able to open up I go from a 1,000 square foot studio to almost a 4,500 square foot gym in like 2 weeks.
Wow. So you actually had, as your intuition in your second marriage, that gut feeling. Now you have this moment when you're going home, the light comes on, and in that moment, you have a gut feeling that says, "Go and take a look at it." But you could also have taken the other road and just kept on going.
Ugh.
But you made the decision to follow that gut feeling and make that decision, and it obviously worked out great for you. You have over 600 members now in your gym. And my question to you on that is because you have this passion to help men, and you obviously see a lot of men come in and out of your gym. With all the trauma and stuff that you've had to go through in your life, are you able to, when people come in and you're having a conversation, are you able to kind of maybe see beyond an initial comment, like, man, there's something going on with this person? And with
100%.
that, have you found people reaching out to you now because of maybe because they feel that you can help them out beyond just the physical aspect?
I would definitely say one of the greatest gifts and rewards that I have had that I've received through all the stuff I've been through is before. I mean, I still carry some of my child trauma into my personal training. Like, oh, quit being a wuss. Oh, you can do one more. Be tough. I started saying those type of things. Even in my training, and I still do, but for fun. But yes, being able to watch people walk in my level of empathy and understanding and compassion and be able to identify the status, the walk, I can people's feel that there something's going on, and it allows me to be able to go up to them and say, "Hey, doing all right? Need anything?" And there's been plenty of men that have actually come up and say, "Jared, I'm going through hell right now, and I'm wondering if you can give me some advice." It's like, I know you went through some stuff. What did you have to do? What could you do? Got a gentleman that talked to me today. Him and I have had very small interactions at the gym, very small interactions, but he pulled me aside today. And I was kind of rushing to come back here for this, but at the same time, he needed me and he confided in me in something that he's struggling with. And we've never had deep conversations. We've had very superficial conversations, just kind of touching on a little bit of religion, not religion, but spirituality. But today he felt so comfortable. He's like, Jared, I don't know why I shared this with you, but I felt comfortable sharing that with you. And so it's been quite a reward that just knowing that I've gone through hell, but yet at the same time, I've discovered there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that I can now give that back to other men is a reward. So there's part of me is like, all right, maybe God allowed these things to happen so I could be a better tool in his hands. But at the same time, we're all here to help each other. I mean, we all have gifts and talents that we just need to get out of here, break down the walls so we can actually work through our heart to serve each other on a greater level.
Your shirt says endurance. the inside approach, and I know there's a meaning behind it, there's a purpose behind it. Touch on that for our listeners.
Absolutely. So God placed in my heart, on my mind 4 years ago, do a podcast, do a podcast, do a podcast, and I just couldn't ever organize it. I mean, it was when I was married to the second wife at the time. I tried to get her involved, and it was met with resistance. And so I was like, all right, maybe it's just something I wanted for my own personal pride. So let's put it on the back burner. And then all of a sudden, the divorce went through. I was like, oh my gosh, I can talk about divorce. I can talk about this, and I started just spitballing all these things, trying to figure out how I want to do this podcast. But I was like, I don't know who my target audience is. I don't know who I'm reaching out to. I'm just going to reach out to everybody. And I just kept getting coached. Nope, got to have a target audience. Have your target audience. Now, yes, you might get multiple everybody listening, but have your target audience. And so it was the ABCs of becoming more initially. That's what I wanted to do. And I was going to go through the alphabet. And for every letter of the alphabet, I was going to have a subject like E for, endurance for letter E. And so it just was never going the right direction. It just was like dancing from this to this to this and this and this. And a couple of months ago, one of my mentors that has her own podcast, she called me out of the blue. And she doesn't call me very often, right? We have our scheduled time to talk, but she scheduled it out of the blue and said, Jared, I don't know if this is for you or not for you, but I feel like I received a message for you. And I don't usually do this. I don't want to step on your toes. I don't want to act like I'm God. She's like, I just feel very impressed to share this with you. And I was like, all right. She's like, you should make your podcast directed towards men
Mm.
because of everything you've been through. Share that with them because there are many men going through what you've gone through, the ways you were raised, the way, the divorces, there's been challenges with my kids because of the divorce. I didn't even talk to my youngest son for almost a year after the first divorce. They didn't really get along with my second wife. They didn't have a lot of respect for her. Come to find out after the divorce was over, there was a lot of things that I have experienced that now we can talk about on this podcast. But again, how did I get to this point is because I took the inside approach, the renewing of my mind in order to then allow, because I mean, God's going to give some inspiration, right? But if we have all these walls here, how's it going to get to our heart? So I had to break down these walls. I had to take this inside approach. And so now the podcast that I'm forming is the inside approach, helping men evolve naturally.
Nobody wants to have to go through the trauma. Nobody wants to have to go through the challenges that they've had to go through, right? But those challenges, those traumas that you endured, that you just described, made you who you are today. You talk a lot about God, so made you go through all that because He had a purpose for you. He had a purpose, but He needed you in order to get that purpose. He needed you to go through this so you would understand it in order to help other
In
men.
order to help.
Correct?
Because I mean, there's book smarts, right? There's a lot of people in the education world that are book smart, but then there's application smart. And that's the part that I love. I love the application smart. It's like I can go read a book and be smart and I quote this book, but it's like I want to teach from the heart, not from the head. So I took the inside approach to break these walls down so I can speak with my heart, not with my smarts.
Wow. Now I want to touch on something real quick and actually you introduced me to it. And if there's a new group out there for men that is forming, that's gotten off the ground, tell us about this new group for men and the purpose behind it.
It's interesting. It's called the Millionaire Man Cave. And I would definitely say let's provide a link for people to study on, as well, or learn more about it. Usually like within like these men's groups or these guru groups, you have one guru. This group of men have 12 men, all kind of with multiple successes and experiences of life, have come together to create these pillars, these F pillars of focusing on faith, finances, family, friendship, fights. Be able to focus on different areas that a man needs to focus on. For us to evolve naturally back into manhood because there's pressures coming all over the place. But at the same time, we're all doom scrolling and saying, man should be this, man should be this, man should be this. It can be confusing, but really it shouldn't be. There are certain roles and responsibilities that we have as a man, to be in our masculine. blended with some feminine. And the women had to be in their feminine with blended with a little bit of masculine. But to be able to get us into our masculine, this organization, this group was created just a couple months ago. In what they say, 4 months, we have now 600, over 600 men in this group and in different countries even. But what this does is it's an accountability group. I mean, the biggest thing we lack is accountability. I mean, why do you think I've been personally training for 15 years? People come to me because they don't have the accountability to do it on their own. Okay, in order to achieve new levels, you have to overcome old devils,
Mhm.
and in order to accurately do that, you need some accountability. And for me, I mean, I'm the boss of the gym, so who's holding me accountable? I don't have accountability. I mean, yes, I want to be accountable to God, but at the same time, to have some physical accountability as a man, kind of challenging our ego, kind of challenging us as to step it up, it's what we need. And men thrive in challenges. We thrive at war. We were designed to fight, right? We were designed to go to battle, not just fight to may be right, fight for a purpose, fight for a cause. And that's exactly what this is. It's not so that people get distracted with the name millionaire. That's not that they're trying to force you to be a millionaire with financials. It's to have a millionaire mindset, right? In order to make $1 million, you have to have a certain mindset. But to be able to be a millionaire in your family, your mindset, be a millionaire in your friendship, your friendships, your fitness, shift the mind, but to be able to be the man in your role of life. But sometimes it takes you to going into a cave, not a man cave where people go to escape, go into a cave to really just kind of like get away from the noise so you can focus in on what's really important. And so that's where the name comes from. And so there's a great program that they have with each of these gurus, these mentors, these 12 men, to help going over these different pillars in life. And they come with daily challenges, daily thoughts, different actions. And so to be able to just follow through this program, it's actually made me step up my game. I finally found something that can hold me accountable, but at the same time, look up to these men saying, "Okay, these guys are great guys. I could do what they're doing, but they're also very faith based, God fearing men that want to do good and want men to be better." And so that's what I really love about it. So I'm glad you were able to
Yeah.
participate in our gathering last night.
It's harder for guys to relax, right? Even amongst other guys, right? You got to be, you got to be tough. You got to,
Peacock.
oh yeah, yeah, you're right. But one thing I realized when I was out, at the event was the relax. I mean, immediately there was like we talked about walls, but immediately the wall kind of came down, right? You could go, oh wait, I can relax here. It's just us. It was a bonfire. We could all laugh. We were joking, have a good time, sharing stories, getting to know each other. So for anybody, guys out there that are looking for something, I highly recommend you look into it. Give it a try. Give it a look, because it's really different to be in an organization where you can put all those guards down and you don't have to worry about being judged about what society says. You're just with other men. You've obviously been through a lot. And for a guy out there, for a man out there who is struggling, whatever that is they're struggling it is. What would be your core message to that individual right now? A message to them that they need to hear today to start shifting them to a total different avenue of or a different direction.
I always like to invite myself and any man to kind of go. I mean, I'm working on my inner child right now. I mean, there's a lot of things that I just didn't receive as a young child. There's a lot of things that a lot of us did not receive because our parents were parents for the first time. They screwed up. They made a lot of mistakes, and so there's a lot of nurturing things, but there's a lot of things that our inner child is lacking. But at the same time, if we remember when we were children, we had great imaginations, right? And there was things that we aspired for. And so what I like to reflect and invite people to do is just like, all right, kind of think back those times in your childhood or even in your teenage years and just say, and look and answer the question, are you the man you wanted to be at this stage in your life? And if the answer is yes, awesome, 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 awesome. But if the answer is no, like it is for me, all right, let's go back and find out what that inner child or that young child needed, and what are the habits and mindsets and shifts we need to do in order to mirror that man.
Speaking of going back, here's a question for you. If you can go back to young Jared, being the peacekeeper and all that, what's what is one piece of advice that you would give young Jared back then to help him now?
Short answer is F it. It's like stop spending so much time and energy on something that's going to hurt you, right? I mean, a lot we get so distracted as humans, but as men, we get distracted with filling voids versus using those voids for growth. And so, because I spent so much time being the peacekeeper, I distracted myself by playing with friends. I distracted myself with video games. I distracted myself by, you know, going on dates. It's like I distracted myself just to try to keep that average. If I was to go back and say, to talk to that child, like, don't let the distractions be the distractions. Focus on you and become a little bit better every day.
All right. Well, for those out there who want to find out more about you, I know you're still working on the podcast, getting that all going, but how can they connect with you, find out more information about what it is that you're doing?
Yeah, I love it. I would definitely recommend going to Instagram. Instagram's a great place to find me. It's jared.luke for my personal one. And then for the podcast growth that we're doing, it's going to be the inside approach underscore men on
All right.
Instagram.
So you have obviously gone through a lot of trauma. You had to be a peacekeeper, divorces, all that you've gone through. So as you know, the title of the show is Eagle Freedom Presents. So my question to you, Jared, is with all that you've gone through, what does freedom mean to you?
Freedom means being able to be your true authentic self, because there's ego and then there's true authentic self, and they're fighting each other. So freedom is letting go of the ego, which also can stand for edge God out. Let go of the ego and just be authentic. Be your true authentic self.
All right. Well, Jared, Luke, it has been a privilege to have you on the show. I want to wish you the best of luck with the podcast. Be looking forward to that launching soon. So good luck on that. And again, thank you for sharing your insight, your story with our listeners.
Oh, thank you, Dustin. Appreciate you.
Guys, listening to this, what is it that you're struggling with? What is your biggest struggle right now? Drop it in the comments below and let us know, and we'll be sure to reach back out to you and respond to your comments. But what is it that you're struggling with right now? And be sure to like, share, and comment on this, especially if there's some other guy out there that you know that could benefit from this conversation. And remember that you too can rise, inspire, and overcome. God bless.